Ever since maxing my UIM, I've had the goal of improving my melee loadout because it sticks out like a sore thumb. I started by finally getting my first ever Infernal Cape, and then I went on a big Slayer grind to get a bunch of one-off upgrades, and then, in the last video, well, things went off the rails. I started by taking some of those items I got from the Slayer grind and upgrading them further, like turning my Imbued Heart into a Saturated Heart, and turning my Eternal Crystal into the Eternal Boots, but things really went crazy when I decided to do the same for my Pegasian Crystal, and ended up getting to 1,000 Medium Clue KC in my pursuit of the elusive Ranger Boots. And because that Medium Clue grind also got me the just as elusive Bandos Cloak, I decided to go get a Bandos God Sword to complete the Master Stash unit where I can store it. After that, it was time for UIM Showdown, where my normal account plans fell to the wayside in favor of doing some grinds that I normally wouldn't do in order to help out the team, like getting all the items from the Moon's Apparel and trying out the Scorching Bow method at Krill in the God Wars dungeon. But now, it's time to get back on track. There are 2 bosses that got added to the game recently, and I've been putting them off for a while, but they are critical for taking my account to the next level, and those bosses are Yama and the Doom of Mokhaiotl. I'll be grinding out both of them because they have important upgrades from my account, but I need to decide which one I'm going to tackle first. I think the main deciding factor here is going to be which boss can I kill without the upgrades from the other boss, and this is really important. If one of these bosses gives me a bunch of upgrades that helps me kill the other one faster, I should really do that one first because otherwise I'm wasting a lot of time, so let's look at both of these new bosses. Yama is a duo-focused endgame boss that got added in May of this year, and the main thing it drops is pieces of the Oathplate armor set. I've been getting so many accessories for my melee loadout, but I've been holding off on going for the core armor pieces, and that's because Oathplate will be the core of my melee loadout. It has strength bonuses similar to Bandos armor, but it has a ton of melee accuracy bonuses, especially for the slash style. So when I'm not using slash, it's basically like having Bandos armor, but when I am using slash, like with my Noxious Halberd, or when I get a Scythe of Vidor in the future, it'll be the best option for bossing. The Doom of Mokhaiotl, on the other hand, has 2 drops that I care about. One is the Mokhaiotl Cloth, which is used to upgrade the Tormented Bracelet into the new best in slot magic gloves, the Confliction Gauntlets. The other is the Avernic Treads, which are the new best in slot boots. And that's the end of the sentence, because they're best in slot for everything now. They actually put a pair of boots in the game that is best in slot for melee, ranged, and magic. The final piece of this puzzle is that when you fight Yama, you primarily use melee and magic, and when you fight Doom, you primarily use ranged. And that pretty much solves this dilemma instantly. If I take on the Doom first, I'll get melee and mage upgrades that I can take to Yama to make that grind easier. So, it's off to the Doom of Mokhaiotl. So let's talk a little bit about how this boss works, because it actually uses a new mechanic that Jagex calls the Delve system. The way it works is, you kill the easiest form of the boss, and then you can see what loot you've earned from it. Then you can choose to either end your run and keep that loot, or instead descend to a deeper Delve level and take on a harder form of the boss. If you beat that form, you see the previous loot as well as a new loot drop, and you can choose to take all the loot you've earned so far, or go even deeper. The deeper you go, the greater the chance of getting unique drops, but the boss gets significantly harder at deeper Delve levels, and if you die at any point in the run, you lose all the loot you would have gained. You have to choose to end the run early to get any loot. For a boss like this, inventory space is crucial. You want to pack your inventory full of supplies so you can make it to the deeper Delve levels, since you can't resupply in the middle of a run. So I think this is actually going to be the time that I finally get an item that I hinted at a few videos ago when I was doing mixology, and that is the Chugging Barrel. This item is really interesting because it has a special use for UIMs that's entirely different from what everyone else uses it for. The main purpose of the Chugging Barrel is to allow players to easily pre-pot before going into a PvM activity like a raid. You load it up with 5 different types of potion, up to 100 doses each, and when you drink from the barrel, it automatically drinks 1 dose from each type of potion in sequence, so you can sip a Ceradomin brew, and then a Super Restore, and then a Super Combat potion all at once, and then you're good to enter the raid. But for UIMs, the chucking barrel has an entirely different use, and it's purely for inventory management. Remember how I said you can load it up with 100 potion doses each for 5 different potions? When you would have had those in your inventory as noted potions, that basically consolidates 5 inventory slots into one. So between runs, instead of unnoting 5 different stacks of noted potions and decanting, you can just pull all of them out of the chugging barrel. The only downside is that it only holds 100 doses of each type of potion, so the rest of them still have to go into the looting bag, and you can only do so many runs before you run out of doses and have to re-gear to refill it. But even with that downside, the chugging barrel is going to help a ton here at the Doom boss, since it'll give me a bunch of extra inventory slots to hold more supplies. The final piece of the loadout is, believe it or not, Dark Light. Not Ember Light, not Arc Light, Dark Light, because if I use Ember Light, I have to bag the Amulet of the Damned from the stash unit. And fun fact, did you know that you can get a new Dark Light if you have the Ember Light stored in the stash unit? I'll explain what that's for later. The Doom of Mokhaiotl is in the dungeon from the end of the final Dawn quest, which is quite a bit of a run, and unfortunately I will rarely have any of the teleport items to get here faster. I'm just going to be running from the Tau Teklin Quetzal station. One thing that's a little nice at least is they added this weird teleporter mechanic where you can set up some teleport stones here in the dungeon to reduce the run back. Okay, I guess it's time to try this out. I've been kind of dreading starting this boss because it's just so much to learn, but I have to start at some point, so let's do it.
I'll be honest, guys, that was bad.
So let's talk about the first few delve levels, because most of the core mechanics are here, and a lot of the skill of being good at this boss centers around mastering these core mechanics. All the damage in the Doom of Mokhaiotl is technically avoidable, but it gets virtually impossible to avoid everything once the game starts throwing more and more mechanics at you at the same time. To start off, the boss has Leviathan-style projectiles where you have to use the correct protection prayer to block it based on the color. And occasionally it'll launch a ball into the air that explodes, throws debris on the floor that you have to dodge, and then spawns auto attacks you have to block. On top of that, there's the charge attack. The normal version of this attack requires you to hit him with a melee attack to interrupt it. If you don't, you get hit for at minimum 60 damage, but this scales up in the later delve levels to the point where it's basically a one-shot if you don't interrupt it. In that first run, I forgot it had to be a melee attack there, and I was just trying to hit it with a ranged attack, which didn't work. He also does this attack where he spawns a bunch of pillars on the floor, and you have to hit 2 of them to spawn this protective bubble, which travels between the 2 that you hit. He does this shockwave attack afterwards, and you have to stand in the bubble to dodge it. He does more shockwaves as you go deeper into the delve levels. And throughout the whole fight, he'll spawn these little grubs that require you to hit them with a certain attack style. The earlier ones only prey against one style or don't prey at all, but the later ones prey against 2, so you do have to use the right style. Plus, you can only one-shot them if you're using a Demon Bane weapon or spell, which is why I have the Scorching Bow, Dark Light, and the Kodai Wand to cast Demon Bane spells. If you don't kill the grubs before they reach the boss, they heal the boss and damage you. Once you get to delve level 3, he starts spitting out acid when you hit him, so you have to make sure not to stand on that. The acid venoms you, which is why I'm camping the Serp Helm here. He also gains a new phase, this shield phase, where he gets a shield bar and starts his charge up attack. The good news is that this version of the charge up attack lets you hit him with any Demon Bane attack and it interrupts it. He also starts spawning a series of grubs, which if you kill them while they're next to the boss, it actually hits the shield for 100 damage, which is huge. Cool, so that is Delve 1 complete, and this is what it looks like when you finish a Delve level. I got fire runes on that one, but I don't care about that, so I am gonna go deeper. Nice, Delve 2 complete on the same run. Ether Catalysts, I don't care about those either, so I'm gonna move on to the next level. There's the end of the run. I am still really shaky on this, but I gotta just keep playing, keep going to learn it. Oh, I just realized I technically got to the point where I can start getting uniques. Yeah, the Mokhaiotl cloth can technically be rolled for loot from Delve level 2 and onwards, but it's so rare from those early levels. Cool, that is Delve level 3 done, which is the first level where I can get the Eye of Ayak. I didn't mention this earlier when I was talking about the rewards, and that's because it's not a must-get for me. It's a new magic weapon that is mostly worse than the Shadow, but it does have some niche uses. Yeah, I was late getting my prayer up for the first auto, and then I misclicked the third one, so that just stacked me out entirely. I should mention, the process of re-gearing here is rough because not only is this a pretty long run back, you have to do it multiple times to re-gear, since you gotta go bag your stuff and then go pick up everything else, and then leave again to restock on potions. Obviously, this will become less of an issue as I get better at the boss, but for now, this is pretty rough. I also want to address a strategy that a lot of people do at this boss, which is called gigapiling, where you basically stay death piled the entire time with multiple death piles near the boss arena for different item stacks, and you keep resetting the death piles when they get low. But I am not doing that on account of how dangerous that strat is. Yes, if you do everything 100% perfectly, you are guaranteed to not lose your items, but that requires you doing everything 100% perfectly for the entire boss grind, which is just not reasonable to expect from anyone, let alone myself. There have been 4 known cases in the last month of UIMs losing items because they were gigapiling, and they range from missing 1 or 2 items when picking up a death pile to forgetting to reset an entire death pile and losing everything. Every single one of those people thought that they were the smart one who wasn't gonna mess it up, but they did. And yes, there will probably be some people who are going to try and clown on me for not doing a more dangerous method that speeds up the grind or lets me take more supplies or switches in, but I would rather do that than have those same people clown on me for losing everything. Nice, that is Delve level 4 done. That is the first one where I can get the Avernic Treads. For a bit of a checkpoint, the Treads drop on Delve 4 at a rate of 1 in 1350, and the Cloth has a cumulative rate of 1 in 610, meaning there's a 1 in 610 rate to have gotten them from Delve 2, 3, or 4. Delve 5 introduces everyone's favorite phase, the car phase. Yeah, he goes full Optimus Prime and transforms into a car, trying to run you over. He puts a little marker of where he's going to drive to so you can just get out of the way. You also have to be hitting him regularly because he's doing his charge up attack the whole time, though thankfully any attack can interrupt the charge up here, not just Demon Bane and not just melee. The one really nice thing about this phase is that you have guaranteed accuracy against him, which is really nice. This is the main reason I brought my blowpipe to use as a spec weapon, because that spec is guaranteed if I can hit it during the car phase. Oh nice, I beat Delve 5. For reference, the cumulative drop rate of the Treads here is 1 in 506 and the Cloth is 1 in 348. Delve 6 adds 2 important changes to the car phase. First, he fires auto attacks when he's driving, so you have to pray against those. And secondly, after every cycle, he does a shockwave attack, where you have to stand behind one of the rocks that's been placed in the arena from the ball attacks. And you can't just cheese this by being really far away, or else you won't be able to interrupt his charge up attack, which at this point hits 99 guaranteed. Oh my god, yep, can't do that. I was trying to just heal through the last shockwave because it doesn't do like too much damage, but I forgot to hit the boss to reset the charge up attack. Ooh yes, there was my first Delve 7 completion. Oh my god! Yeah, so Delve 8 upgrades the ball attack so it throws 2 balls at once, so you have to pray against 6 auto attacks 1 tick apart. I'm still really happy with that though. Beating Delve level 7 gives me a 1 in 179 chance to see the Cloth cumulatively, and a 1 in 214 chance for the Treads. Ooh, I got something! Holy shit! It's day 1 and I got something. Oh my god. Okay, yeah, that means there's something in there. Okay, so that was Delve level 6, which means there is a, there's a 1/3 chance for any of the items. So it could be the eye, it could be the Cloth, or it could be the Treads, which would be incredible because that's the most rare item. So, oh my god, I was not expecting to get something on day 1. Okay, let's see what we get. Oh my god, I got the Treads, yes! Okay, are you sure you want to claim? Yes, I want to claim it. Take the Avernic Treads. I also got the Demon Tears, that's great. Let's take all those. Oh my god, that is just so unbelievably lucky. I don't really care about the rest of any of this. Let's take the Dart Tips for the money. Oh my god. That's so good. Oh my god. So let's talk about those Avernic treads. They drop from the Doom of Mokhaiotl in their base form, and in that form, they're already better than all the previous best in slot boots, the Primordial boots for melee, the Pegasian boots for ranged, and the Eternal boots for magic. This means that off the bat, I'm going to switch to these for the Doom grind, since it'll give me +2 ranged strength bonus and +3 ranged accuracy bonus over the Pegasians, and also some extra defenses, though that doesn't really matter since all the damage here is avoidable. But the really important thing here is that the boots are upgradable. You can use each of the best in slot boots on them to improve the stats even further. There is one catch though, which is that it also requires 4,000 demon tears to do that. So for now, I'm going to be using the base form until I get enough demon tears to upgrade them with the Pegasians. Then I'll do the same with the Eternals and the Primordials. Oh, and if you were wondering what the total delve count was to get these, it was 58, but keep in mind the treads only start dropping on level 4, so I got the treads on the 18th delve that could have dropped them. One thing I've started doing is trying to get a blowpipe hit at the start of each wave. The blowpipe has a 25% chance to venom on hit, but if you're also wearing the Serp helm, that goes up to 100%. The Doom of Mokhaiotl is immune to venom, but surprisingly, it is not immune to poison, so landing just that one blowpipe hit can do a lot of extra damage over the course of the wave. Alright, that's going to be it for the day. Here's what I managed to accomplish on day 1 in terms of the different delve levels, and I know it's not really representative of what it'll be like going forward since I had a lot of time to game today, but I'm also, pretty happy with how everything went. Obviously getting the treads was incredible, but I also feel like I learned a lot about the boss and got decently good at it, at least for day 1 standards. The 2 main goals going forward are getting the Mokhaiotl cloth and enough demon tears to do everything with both those and the treads, but I'm also going to be trying to get more competent with some of the later delve levels since I'm still dying to really dumb mistakes a lot. Good morning. I have decided to make a small change to the loadout here, and that's going to be bringing the Crystal Halberd, the Chally. So far, I have been using the Dark Light as my weapon to interrupt the first form of the charge-up attack, the one where you have to use melee, but that's not really the best choice for that since it's actually what's called a punish mechanic, meaning you're guaranteed to get some extra damage based on your total visible strength bonus. The Dark Light only has 13 strength bonus, which is awful, but the Crystal Halberd has 118 strength bonus, plus, because its special attack hits twice, that's going to double the bonus damage. I've been mainly saving my spec energy for blowpipe specs in the car phase, and that's so rare that I ever need to actually do that, and I would get much more value out of making the boss fight shorter by getting all that extra damage on every melee charge up attack, so let's see how this goes. Oh my god, yeah, I think that's going to be a good choice. Apparently, even if you roll a 1 for damage normally and have no other strength boosting equipment, this hits a minimum of 2323 on the boss for 46 damage. That is huge.
Oh, I got something. Wait, no way. It happened again. It's day 2.
Okay, this is incredible. This could be any of the 3, any of them would be really good, because if it's the cloth, obviously that's the thing I'm looking for. If it's the eye, then, that's something that I wouldn't have gone out of my way to get, but it could be a niche item to keep. And then if it's the treads, that's a duplicate, and it's a payday for the main, so I guess let's see what we get. Oh my god! Treads on day 1, treads on day 2. I'm even richer on the main now. That's incredible. So I'm still keeping the blowpipe, even though I'm not speccing with it during car phase anymore, because it actually works really well as a regular weapon during that phase too, since the accuracy is guaranteed. It's best in Delve 5 when you don't have to deal with autos and shockwaves though. Okay, it's been a little bit. It's been a little bit. I've mainly been doing Delve 5 and 6 runs, depending on how lucky I got on demon tears, and I've now gotten enough tears to add the first pair of boots to the Avernics. I'm doing the Pegasians first, since they're the one I'm actually using for this grind. There we go, Avernic Treads PE. These give the Avernic Treads an additional +1 range strength bonus, which yes, isn't monumental, but it is still significant. And perhaps more importantly, this also frees up a bag slot, since I've been keeping the Pegasians in my bag whenever I'm not using them, and I've been keeping the Pegasian crystals since before that. I'm actually about to go second monitor mode for a bit while I work on something else, and I just realized that this is a good opportunity to try out this other method of getting demon tears. Kinda like how you can fish Zulrah scale seals in the lake by Zora, you can actually chop demon tears from these infected roots. Apparently it's super AFK, much more so than Zora scales, since they don't move or anything like a fishing spot. Yeah, I just got a 12-minute AFK time purely from one click and 147 demon tears. You literally just click the root and you're good to AFK for 12 minutes, since the only thing that interrupts it is your inventory filling up with logs. And yes, that could get even more AFK if I death banked for more space, but I wasn't 100% familiar with this method, and I generally have a rule of thumb to not go into things that I'm not very familiar with while death banked while they're near a boss arena, even if by all accounts it should be safe. Alright, I actually managed to chop enough demon tears to do the next upgrade, so let's add these eternal boots. And there is the Avernic Treads PEET, which gives an additional 1% magic damage bonus. Again, it's not groundbreaking, but it is significant, and yes, it frees up yet another back slot. And after a few more hours of uneventful Doom runs, here is another 4,000 tears, and I have the Primordial Boots here. There we go, the Avernic Treads Max. Adding the Primordial Boots gives an additional +2 strength bonus, and more importantly, that is the fully upgraded Avernic Treads, the 100% best in slot boots for everything right here on the UIM. These boots have literally one singular downside, which is that they are untradeable, so I can't put them in the looting bag, but that's not going to matter much because I have no reason to ever have them unequipped. Plus, if I ever really need to store them, they're actually storable in the stash unit that normally takes dragon boots, since technically primordial boots are made using dragon boots, and the Avernic Treads Max are made using the primordial boots. Oh my god, that was rough. But there it is. My first ever Delve 8 completion that is theoretically as difficult as it gets, and the rest of the challenge is just doing it with more acid on the floor and fewer supplies. Ooh, there we go. I got another one, nice. And here's a slowed down clip of what the double ball attack actually expects you to do. It disables your prayer when each of the balls explodes, so you have to wait for the second one to explode before you put your prayer up. Positioning is also really tricky here because you have to first move to a safe spot so the first batch of debris doesn't hit you, and then once the second ball explodes, you have to move to where one of the pieces of debris from the first batch landed, which guarantees that you're safe from the second batch. And after you've done that, you have to get the prayer switches right, tick perfectly, range, mage, range, then wait a tick, and then mage, range again, and that reverses if the balls were blue instead of brown. So yeah, it is a pretty difficult attack to dodge, especially if you have to do it while following the bubble for a shockwave attack. Oh my god, I did it. That is a Delve level 9 completed. And like I said, anything past level 8, which the game calls an 8+, is the same stat-wise and mechanically, and it also has the same drop rate for the uniques, specifically 1 in 540 for the cloth, which is not cumulative because that's the rate for each wave. Nope, teleporting out of that one. I think it's gonna be possible for me to get some deeper Delve levels, but man, it's gonna be hard. Nice, that is my first ever Delve 10 complete. Ooh, nice, barely made it past that one. That is a Delve 11. Alright, it's been a little bit, and I'm begging my loot from a completed Delve 8 run, and take a look at this. 10,000 demon tears in the bag. That's enough to make the confliction gauntlets, which means once I get the Mokhaiotl cloth, I'm 100% done at this boss. Nice, there was my first ever Delve 12 completion. I have learned new tech. Take a look at this. I am currently in wave 6, which is the first wave where it does the shock waves during the car phase. Yeah, this is huge. If you use the ball attack to place one of the pieces of debris on one of the 2 tiles I have marked, and then bait the car to go to that area, it'll land perfectly on top of the debris but not destroy it. And when it does its first shockwave, it gets completely blocked by the rock it's standing on. This is one fewer shockwave that you have to worry about dodging, but more importantly, it means you have way more rocks in the arena to block the second and third shockwaves. And not only that, it lets you spend less time running around to dodge the shockwaves and more time hitting the boss for additional DPS. And that's great because it means you have a better chance of not having to deal with the orb phase. So yeah, pretty huge tech, and I'm hoping this will help me get my deep delves up a lot. I also want to take a moment to talk about how my perspective on this fight is changing a bit, and mainly it's getting simpler. A lot of the stuff that I was trying to do with the blowpipe in particular probably wasn't worth it, so I'm basically dropping it from the strat. Blowpiping in car phase, not worth it because I have a T-bow. Blowpipe specking in car phase, not worth it because I would rather have more Chally specs. Blowpiping at the start of the wave for poison, Once again, not worth it because I have a T-bow. In fact, pretty much the only reason I even still have the blowpipe right now is to save on bag space and to give myself an emergency heal if I need to spec on car phase or the earth pillars during orb phase. In general, the strategy has become a lot simpler, and that actually helps a ton for mechanically dense fights like this. The only real strategies that I have besides responding to the boss's attacks are using the Chally spec for the melee punish and putting the rock on the tile to block a shockwave. As long as I can keep those things in mind, the rest of my mental energy can be focused on avoiding damage, which is really important here. Alright, it has been a long day of attempts, but I just hit a pretty big milestone and I wanted to show this off. I'm currently at 893 total delves, but the important thing is what this breakdown means for my unique rate. I've been keeping a spreadsheet for it because of course I have, and after this last delve 12 I just did, it got me to over 200% of the drop rate for any unique. So that means I'm now pretty much where I would expect to be since I'm at 200% of the drop rate, and I have 2 uniques, both being the treads. And because both of those drops were so early on in the grind, it also means I've basically just gone 2 full drop rates without seeing anything, which is a bit unfortunate, but that's just how these things can go. Okay, so that was the end of a very hard fought Delve 12 run, and it should be marking something pretty cool on the scoreboard. Yeah, there we go. If you look at my 8s and 8 pluses, I actually have more 8 pluses, which means I'm starting to pretty consistently get pretty far into the deep delves. I feel like that's kind of a bit of a sign that you're starting to get good at this boss. There we go, new PB, Delve 13 completed.
I got something. Yes. Oh my god.
Alright, it has been a while. It's been like over 2 times the drop rate to get any unique since my last unique, so I'm really happy to see something here. Yeah, same deal as last time. 1/3 chance for the boots, which is a huge payday for the main, 1/3 for the Eye of Ayak, which is an item that's not a must-have, but it would be pretty interesting to have on the UIM, and then 1/3 for the cloth, which completes the grind. So let's see what we got. Oh my god. Oh boy. Treads number 3. That's treads number 3 on the UIM. No cloth, no eye. Here's another tech I picked up. If you stand here on the edge of the room right next to the boss after setting up the safe spot during the car phase, it actually won't go anywhere before it does its next shockwave. And it's a little bit awkward to guess when your location has been read by the boss, but if you can get a feel for it, it helps a lot for safely managing the car phase, especially if there's a lot of boulders in this part of the room. Here, I knew the first shockwave would be fully blocked by the rock, and then I used this tile to keep the boss in place so I could step behind this other boulder nearby without moving the boss, and then after that I lured the boss south so I could safely hide behind this third one. The method also works well for keeping your DPS high during the phase, since the boss is always within T-bow range, and you're not running all the way across the room so you can keep attacking on cooldown. Keeping up your attack cycle is really important during this phase since your accuracy is guaranteed. Good morning, it is update day, and today's update is pretty relevant for this grind because it's mostly for the Doom of Mokhaiotl combat achievements. So if I open my combat tasks, yeah, 4 tasks retroactively completed. Okay, yeah, so that's Doom Adept for getting a Delve 3 completion, Doom Crawler for getting a sub 30 second Delve 1, Veteran for getting a Delve 8 completion, and Chaser for doing a full Delve 8 run in less than 10 minutes. I think there may be 1 or 2 more that I could get passively on the grind, but I'm not going to be going out of my way for any of them since I'm fully focused on the cloth. There we go, Exposed Doom, that's for killing him during the melee punish attack, so that was pretty inevitable. Mokhaiotl Drift, that's for killing it before the end of the car phase on Delve 8 or higher. Okay, so I just finished a Delve 13, and this is actually a pretty big milestone because I just checked my spreadsheet and I just hit the drop rate to see the cloth specifically. So even though I'm a little bit lucky for items in general, and very lucky for the boots in particular, I'm now officially dry for the cloth. I'm now getting close to like 3 times the drop rate for any item too, so that's pretty cool as well. There we go, I decided to knock out Grub Patrol 2, that's for doing a full Delve 8 run without any grubs reaching the boss. New PB, Delve 14. Ooh, okay, Well, that's the end of this run, but I managed to get the Mopping Up CA for clearing 8 tiles of acid with the orb, since it clears acid that it paths over. You know, as I stand here in the lobby surrounded by people in Elite Void and 42, I want to address something that I think is going to be a common question, which is why I'm using Masori instead of Elite Void. It turns out that both of them are really similar DPS-wise, with Void doing slightly better on the car phase because of the guaranteed hits, and Masori doing slightly better everywhere else. But there's 2 main trade-offs between the two. If you're using Void, you can't wear a Serp Helm for Venom immunity, and if you're using Masori, the death fees are way more. But for UIMs, there's actually no death fee, it's just a death pile, so for my situation, Masori is just a better choice entirely. This would probably be different if I didn't have a T-Bow or if I had a ZCB, but for my situation, Masori is probably better. Delve 15, that is a new PB. Ooh, yes. I was wondering when I would get something, so surely the video game would not give me 4 pairs of treads in a row. Surely, right? Same rules as before, 1 and 3 for each item. So let's see. Ooh, the eye! Let's go. Okay, I'm gonna be getting all 3 of them then. There's the Eye of Ayak uncharged. Very, very cool. Okay, the Eye of Ayak. This is the new best one-handed magic weapon in the game, beating out the Sanguine SD staff from the Theater of Blood, and even though I already have the Tumican Shadow, which generally beats it in DPS, this is still worth keeping on the UIM for a couple of reasons. First, it has a 3-tick attack speed, which is fast for powered stabs, and it could make it useful in some niche situations like the Nilo room, and secondly, it has a special attack that drains stats, similarly to the Dragon Warhammer or the BGS, but this one specifically drains magic defense, which makes it pretty unique. There's one other interesting thing about the Eye of Ayak that actually makes it really useful for this fight. Its regular attack actually kills the magic grubs in 1 hit, which normally only happens with Demon Bane spells, and this means I actually don't have to be on the Arceus spellbook at all anymore, and that means I can be on the Lunar spellbook instead for the Cure Me spell, which means I don't need to wear my Serp Helm anymore, and I can wear my Masori mask for more DPS. This is actually really big, and it may have made this fight a lot easier. Oh, and the Eye of Ayak can be charged with either runes or the demon tears from the boss, and I'm going to be charging it up with demon tears for now. That's mainly just so I don't have to have them taking up a bag slot, and with how little I'll actually be casting it, there's no way I'll actually use them all up before I get the cloth. So this is the new loadout. The Serp Helm is in the inventory because it's untradeable, and the Shadow is there because my bag was overflowing a bit. So basically I can bring 2 fewer supplies, but now I can wear the Masori mask instead of using the Serp Helm. So I just came up with another idea here. Because my Serp Helm has to stay in the inventory, I can just do a 2-way switch for the melee punish instead of a 1-way switch, and that gives me a few extra guaranteed damage since it's based on your strength bonus, and the Serp is primarily a melee helm. And yeah, there we go, 28-28, just like before, so even though it's taking up a slot that could have been an extra brew, that slot is not being wasted. Alright, 2 big milestones here. First off, I just finished my 200th run, not counting that first one where I died on Delve 1, and secondly, I have now passed 4 times the drop rate for an item, which is good because I just got my 4th item last night, so I'm basically on track for that. There we go, new PB with a 16 Delve. Getting to Delve 16 is actually a Grandmaster Combat task too. Yes, okay, I had to try and do one more, and that's a Delve 17 completion. That's probably gonna be my PB for a very long time. Good morning, I just did my first run of the day, and it's another milestone. That's now 5 times the drop rate for an item, which means that now, for the first time in the grind, I am dry.
Ooh. Yes. Oh my god.
I have received an item, yes. Okay, 1 in 3 for each item. I, at this point, specifically do not want the eye, because if I get the eye, then, that's less money on the main than the treads would be, but I'm really just hoping for the cloth. That's really just the big thing I want is for this grind to be over, so please give me the cloth. Yes! It's over. Alright. Got it. I'm done at the Doom. That is so good. I'm so happy about that. Oh my god, we're done. Awesome. And in case anyone was wondering where that landed in terms of the number of delves. 1929 total delves, 267 8 pluses, and I think the game judges your deep delves based on 8 and 8 plus, so let's take a look at this. 384 deep delves, 1929 total. Deepest delve was 17, and it came out to about 5.25 times the drop rate for the for any unique, and I ended up with 5 uniques here before ending, and then 185% of the cloth rate. So I almost went double the drop rate of the cloth before getting it, but yeah, honestly not too bad. I was overall pretty much on rate. I just got really, really lucky at the beginning with the treads, but yeah, really happy to be done here. That was a cool grind. Okay, so I have my Mokhaiotl cloth, my Tormented bracelet, and my Demon Tears, so let's make these gloves. Awesome Confliction Gauntlets. These are the new best in slot magic gloves in the game, giving 10 extra magic accuracy bonus and 2 extra % magic damage bonus over the Tormented bracelet. They also have a special passive effect where if you splash a magic attack, the next one has increased accuracy, but it actually doesn't work when you're using a two-handed magic weapon, which was specifically to keep it from working with the shadow, which is a bit unfortunate, but that said, it'll still be really nice for when I'm doing things with the Eye of Ayak, and even though the passive doesn't work with the shadow, the extra stats are still really nice. So now that the grind is over, I want to say I really like this boss. I was skeptical when they first announced the delve idea, since it seemed like it would either be too difficult to push into the later levels at all, or so easy that it just felt like a boss with an unnecessary warm-up period, but it turns out they actually kind of nailed the difficulty and the scaling, so it really did feel like you're getting a harder version of the boss with every new delve, even though the stats aren't actually changing. The length of the run and the rarity of the uniques also makes it feel like almost like a raid, which is great because I love raids in this game, and having the light up effect on the burrow hole also contributes to that a ton as well, because it's just like seeing a purple chest in a raid. I really enjoyed this grind, but now I am also really happy for it to be over and to move on. And now it's time to turn my attention to the boss that'll be dropping my core melee armor set going forward, Yama, the Master of Pacts. Yama, the character, has been hinted at since the beginning of the core end questline with the Queen of Thieves quest 8 years ago, but he only became a boss that you could fight earlier this year. There's one thing that I want from this boss, which is the Oathplate armor set, dropped at a rate of 1 in 600 per piece, but there is a dry protection mechanic which I'll get into sometime later. Yama is unique in that it was designed to be a duo boss. You can fight him solo, but the kills take more time and are more risky. That said, anything that requires or soft requires a team, like the Theater of Blood or Volcanic Mine, always comes with an implicit penalty to your efficiency, because you have to spend time finding people to team up with. So yes, killing Yama solo might be slower than doing it in a duo, but if I have to spend a bunch of time waiting around to find a duo partner, that's gonna cancel out, and that gets even worse when I'm still learning the boss, because I'd have to find someone willing to help a learner, and probably deal with a bunch of deaths while I'm getting the hang of it. So because of all that, I'm making the decision to learn Yama solo and using magic. I know a lot of people probably just threw up in their mouths while hearing that, but keep in mind, I'm learning the boss, and learning the boss is way easier when you're using mage. You take less damage across the fight, and you don't have to learn any crazy strategies for the enrage phase, and yes, it's slightly less DPS than using melee, but also keep in mind that my magic gear is way better than my melee gear. That's the whole reason I'm here, so I think, in the long run, learning the boss solo using mage is going to be the fastest way for me to get up to speed. And honestly, it may even be the fastest way for me to do the grind in general, but that'll come down to how easy it is to get duo partners. Here's my loadout, pretty much max mage except for the ring, where I'm using the Lightbearer instead of a magic ring, and that's going to be so I can use the special attack on the Eye of Ayak more often. I also have a Purging Staff and the Ember Light, and I'll explain what those are for later. Yama is a 3-phase fight with off phases in between them. The first 2 phases are all about dealing with fire attacks and shadow attacks. There are fire and shadow versions of Yama's auto attack, and there are also special attacks that use one or the other. The autos can be blocked by just praying correctly, magic for fire and range for shadow, and dealing with the special attacks involves those glyphs on the ground. If you stand on a shadow glyph, it will protect you from the shadow special, and vice versa for the fire glyph. The boss alternates between fire and shadow every time it does a special, and the glyphs alternate too, so it's basically a matter of going in a circle around the arena, and when the next special is about to happen, you just step onto the glyph and switch your prayers so the next set of autos will be blocked. Once Yama is down to 2/3 health, he will take you to the off phase where you have to kill this ad. It switches its prayer to what you last hit him with, which is why I have the Emberlight switch, and once the ad is dead, it takes you to phase 2, which is basically the same as phase 1, but with special attacks that are more powerful, although you still nullified them in the same way using the glyphs. All throughout phases 1 and 2, there are also these AoE attacks in the arena, fire streaks you have to avoid, shadow waves you have to run trick over, and void flares you have to kill using the purging staff, which is why I have that switch. A couple videos ago when I was getting my synapses, I mentioned that a certain boss soft required the purging staff, and this is that boss, specifically for this one mechanic. After phase 2, there is another off phase, and then you land in phase 3, the enrage phase, where all the glyphs are gone and Yama's attack style changes. He still uses his fire and shadow auto attacks, but now he alternates on every attack, so you have to be switching your prayer each time. All of his special attacks are replaced with this triple fireball attack, which spawns an AoE attack on the ground and an hourglass pattern when they land, and finally the shadow waves are also here and they move in an X pattern this time. Now, this is a lot of stuff to worry about, and thankfully, over the months since this boss was added to the game, players have come up with a variety of different strategies and attack patterns to deal with them, like Dono Fly, No Fly, Robo Fly, Robo Fly V2, Trixie Fly, Robo Kite, Simple Fly, God Fly, Mono Fly. We have methods that are guaranteed consistent, methods that are reaction-based, methods that are computer optimized and guaranteed to be the best possible method, methods that are somehow more efficient than those, methods that... But yeah, those are only needed when you're doing melee, so I don't really need to bother. For the triple fireballs, you just step perpendicular to the line, and for the shadow waves, you just run between these two tiles. You click when the X reaches this other set of marked tiles, so yeah, hopefully you can see why I've decided to learn the boss this way. It ends up making the fight so much easier. Ah, damn, that was really close for my first attempt, but not quite. I was really low on food just from not really knowing what I was doing in the first 2 phases, and I really got messed up by the auto attack timing on the last phase. Hey, there we go! First kill done for the Yama Adept CA. Ooh, first collection log item, the teleport scroll. This isn't nearly as useful as, say, the Doom teleport scroll since it's much closer to a normal teleport, specifically the DJR fairy ring, but it's still nice to have. Ooh, yes, my first Oathplate shards drop. This is that dry protection mechanic that I mentioned earlier. If you get 450 of these, you can basically make your own piece of Oathplate armor. So even if I go super dry on my last Oathplate piece, I'll eventually stack up enough of these to make it myself, bypassing that last RNG drop. Okay, time for an early change to the loadout. I just checked the DPS calc here, and take a look at this. Loadout 1 is what I'm currently doing, with the Tunic and Shadow, and Loadout 2 is using the Purging Staff as my main weapon. They are really close, but as it turns out, the DPS calculator isn't taking into effect the Confliction Gauntlets passive, which works on the Purging Staff, but not the Shadow. So all of this to say, I think it's going to come out to higher DPS with the Purging Staff, so I am switching to that. 613, new PB, and 500 soul runes. Holy moly. Well, there's the Barrel of Demonic Tallow. That is the secondary for the new Surge Potion that got added with the Yama update. Surge Potions are pretty useless for me, so that is going to get dropped. Alright, that's my first sub 6, new PB there. And my first Dossier drop, cool. The Dossier can contain one of 3 different things: teleport scrolls, the Rite of Vile Transference, or a contract, and I'll explain what those are when I get them. So let's see what we get. Okay, 3 contracts of Glyphic Attenuation. The contracts are a special mechanic similar to the Awakener's Orbs at the DT2 bosses, where you can turn one in to fight a harder version of the boss for a guaranteed unique reward. For this one, it's a piece of the Purifying Sigil, which unlocks a transmog for the Oathplate armor, which I don't really care about, so those are just gonna get dropped. Ooh, Forgotten Lockbox. I'm just breezing through all the easy collection log items. Okay, so this basically gives you a chance to get one of a number of higher value items from Yama's regular drop table, as well as a slightly increased chance at the oath plate pieces. Oath plate shards, nice. That's pretty much the best thing I could have gotten from that, outside of like an actual oath plate piece. Ooh, another dossier, let's see what we get. Divine Severance, that's another one for the transmog, so it's another drop. Ooh, a CA, back so soon, nice, okay. Ooh, a dossier, okay, let's see what this is. Sensory Clouding, that's another transmog contract, so that's another drop. The Back So Soon CA is for getting a kill with perfect off faces and also doing those off faces very quickly. I thought it was only possible in a duo, but apparently it's possible in a solo, so that's cool. Ooh, yes, more shards. Shards again, I am getting lucky with these. 531 new PB. Oh, and if you wanted to know how you can get the Back So Soon CA in a mage solo, I imagine part of it requires having near best in slot mage gear like this, as well as an Ember Light, but there's a couple other tricks. First off, if you hop across the stepping stones as quickly as possible when you spawn, it actually ignores the fireballs on the way there. You can also get some extra damage by stepping under the ad in between your attacks, which causes it to hit itself with its own fireball. So if you get to the island on the earliest possible tick, and you step under for each of its attacks, and you have good enough mage gear, you should be able to do enough DPS for that CA even in a mage solo. Firefighter, nice, that's for basically avoiding all the fire attacks, as well as finishing off all the void flares with specs instead of normal attacks. Ooh, dossier. Oh god, the Contract of Familiar acquisition. This one basically makes the pet a 1 in 100 drop instead of a 1 in 2500, but honestly I don't think it's going to be worth it to even attempt this, since there's such a small chance I'd be able to actually complete it, so yeah, that's a drop. Whoops, forgot to start my recorder, but I just got Shadow Dancer. This one's like Firefighter, but for dodging all the shadow attacks, as well as only moving one tile to dodge the hourglass attacks. Yama Veteran, 50 KC. Ooh, shards, and an elite clue. There we go, Contract Choreographer. That's for basically getting a perfect kill. So you have to dodge all the fire and shadow attacks and do the off phases perfectly and quickly. You know what I just realized? Because I'm not using a shadow anymore, there is no reason why I can't use an offhand. There we go, Book of Darkness for plus 10 magic accuracy. Another dossier. The Contract of Bloodied Blows, that's another one for the transmog, so to the ground it goes. New PB 510, shards on KC 99, and 100 KC at the boss gives me some rubies. More shards. Ooh, a dossier, and this is actually going to be pretty big because this is my first dossier after 100 KC, which means I should be guaranteed to get the Rite of Vile Transference. Nice, that is a one-time upgrade to the Death Charge spell, which normally increases your spec energy the next time you kill an enemy, but upgrading it makes it apply to the next 2 enemies, which is pretty nice for this boss, since it works on the Void Flayers and those always spawn in sets of 2. Another dossier. Oathplate acquisition. Wait, that's the rare one. Oh my god. Yeah, 67 mil. Jeez. Okay, yeah, I did some reading up on this, and this is not gonna be happening. This contract gives you exactly 1 shot at an extremely harder version of the fight, and if you manage to do it without dying or teleporting out on that 1 attempt, you get a guaranteed Oathplate piece, and I do not trust myself to win that fight, so I would much rather have a free 67 mil on the main than even try it on the UIM. Ooh, shards, nice. It's been a while.
Oathplates, Yama, Yama, These are some fucking worms.
Ooh, shards.
Oh!
More shards. Dossier. Awesome, lots of teleport scrolls on that one. Ooh, lockbox. Yes, more shards, let's go. All right, there we go. That is kill number 200 for Onyx Bolt Tips. But yeah, this 200 KC, which is the drop rate to see any piece of Oathplate, so I am now officially dry for my first Oathplate piece. Unfortunate, but that's just how the game works sometimes.
Ooh, yes! Yes, my first Oathplate piece. Oh my god. Oathplate chest, let's go, dude.
I'm now 1 out of 3 for the Oathplate armor set. Like I said earlier, this set is going to be my core melee set for the end game. It is the best armor in the game for slash accuracy, and it has really good melee strength bonuses too. And that slash accuracy is important because most of the PVM I'm going to be doing from this point onward will be slash. For Dorvis, Duke Succulus, the Theater of Blood, I'm going to be using slash for all of that, and with my new Noxious Halberd, the Oathplate set is the best possible armor that I could be wearing for that. The race is on. I have 1 piece out of 3, and in the next video I will be completing the Oathplate armor set and moving on to the last few upgrades to complete my loadout, and I'll see you then.